Is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Price of Politics, the one and only Bob Woodward. Bob, as always, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell us about the conversation.
With Gene Sperling?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a half hour in which he was shouting at me. Now, I've known him for 20 years, and I emailed back, I don't worry about shouts, but he was really worked up, and then he sent me that email apologizing and, saying I'm going to regret taking this stand. Now, what we're talking about here is not a fact. He's not arguing with a fact, because beforehand he said we're just not going to see eye to eye on this. It's an interpretation. Obviously, he didn't like being challenged on this at all, but people have said, well, this was a threat, or I was saying it was a threat. I haven't used that language, but it's not the way to operate in a White House. It's not, as you know, when somebody says you're going to regret something, particularly somebody in a position of power like Gene Sperling. He's not just a guy in the White House. He is the economic czar for the president. He did the same thing for Bill Clinton, had the same job. So when you say you're going to regret challenging us, I just think that's a mistake. And if you go back into the history and what other people are saying now about the Obama White House, Ron Fournier of National Journal wrote a piece that he's actually refused to talk to somebody in the White House because the language he gets from this person is so belligerent.
Do you feel that that's been a pattern with you in this White House? Did you feel at any time threatened either A, during the phone call, or did you feel that it was a threat when he wrote the word, "You'll regret this"?
Look, what happened here, I wrote a piece Sunday in the Washington Post on the op-ed page, and they got caught about being the father of the sequester. And they, for 2 or 3 months, denied that. To Jay Carney's credit, he came out and said, look, yes, the idea originated here. It's not only about who originated it, but think about what this sequester is. It is one of the most irresponsible ideas. Now, Republicans signed up for this. There's absolutely no question about it. But you look at the details of this and just the way it came about, it's you and I sitting down and saying, what are the things you really love? Let's pass a law cutting those things to ribbons, and then let's take the things I love and put that in the law. We'll cut those to ribbons. That's the sequester, and it is one of these things that's now being debated. What is the impact of it going to be? We don't know, obviously, but they got caught, and so this is an old trick. Make the conduct of the press the issue rather than their conduct.
By the way, I've dealing with the liberal media. I've gotten a lot of this over the course of my career, Bob. So, and a lot of your liberal colleagues, I've noticed, have turned on you. I want to get to that in a minute. But this is important. I read your book cover to cover, and I've now gone back and referred to it a number of times. And your book, in many ways, it's a double blow to President Obama, because, number one, it reveals the sequester idea was his. Number two, that he's lied about it. He lied about it in the debate with Mitt Romney, and he's lied about it since. So you expose that, and you also expose the idea of moving the goalposts, as the president now requests tax increases associated with this. Do you acknowledge, do you think the president lied?
No, look, I'm not going to use words like that. I think we need to tune down the rhetoric here. I mean, out in the great public, which is much more important than those of us in Washington, to say the least, they're wondering, what the hell is going on here? These people cannot talk to each other. They can't make arrangements to protect the national security. It is. I've thought about this a little bit. The biggest story in Washington now is the town itself.
I agree with you.
How crazed this has become, and you know, who knows where this goes.
Well, then what are we to say about it? Because you're standing by your reporting. You're standing by your story.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
But you're saying that it was Obama's idea. He claimed it's not. He said it was not. So you're standing saying that he's not telling the truth, and in other words, use whatever words you want, and that he did move the goalposts. They deny that, and it was Jay Carney, after your article came out in the Post, that said you were willfully wrong. Sounds to me like he's accusing you of lying.
Let's look at this. I spent 2 months reporting on how they came to the sequester and how the super committee worked. The White House was really not involved in this. They monitored it. I spent a long time. In fact, a producer from 60 Minutes called me up and said, we understand when I was working on the Price of Politics, you're doing a book about the super committee. And I said, no, it's just a part. And said, well, everyone says you've got all these notes, you've talked to people, you've got diaries. As best as anyone can, I have the story of what happened here, and it came from the Obama White House. It is something designed to never go into effect. It's going to go into effect. God help us that it is not the spark that sends the economy down. Because it is, I mean, the people in business, the people in politics, the people outside of Washington are dumbfounded and bewildered.
Why should it matter that if the president suggested the sequestration and then the president denied that he requested the sequestration, and the president had a deal that he wasn't going to ask for tax increases and then later does and says, well, no, that's not true, and they attack you as, well, being willfully wrong, why should this matter? I mean, don't we deserve our government to be honest with us?
Exactly. And I'm almost 70 years old. I hate to acknowledge. I've done this for 4 decades. I will keep doing it in some form. But something that, you know, the White House saying you're doing these things when you've worked months on it and you have the documents, and Jay Carney actually acknowledges paternity for the sequester from the White House. The problem is there are all kinds of reporters who are much less experienced, who are younger, and if they're going to get roughed up in this way, and I flooded with emails from people in the press saying this is exactly the way the White House works. They're trying to control, and they don't want to be challenged or crossed.
And welcome back to Hannity, and we continue with journalist Bob Woodward. Look, you mentioned your age earlier, and I don't think you look a day over 50, just for the record. You know, this is not your first rodeo. I was talking about this on my radio show earlier today, and you're right about young journalists. I think they could be far more intimidated in an incident like this. I don't suspect that you would be. I am concerned that the media, they've become almost like the press office or an extension of the press office and not critical in any way asking questions of President Obama. I say that as a conservative. Am I wrong? You can tell me if you think I am.
Let's get this out on the table because it's important. We live in a hyper-partisan era, extreme partisanship, and, you know, let's face it, Fox News is a cornerstone of part of that partisanship. There are also a group of people, MSNBC, a lot of people who support Obama who just believe he can do no wrong. We've got this division, and what somebody who's a traditionalist in the reporting like myself said, well, let's find out what happened. And sometimes it falls this way, sometimes it falls that way. I get calls and emails from people telling me I am insane to come on your show. I say, now wait a minute, you let me say what I want, you dig into things, there is no bleep out button, and I believe in the First Amendment. So we have got to, my view, I suspect it's not yours or Roger Ailes, we've got to bring this back to the center so we have a reasoned discussion as much as possible.
I would say this, though, in defense. I am, like the Washington Post has an opinion page. I'm the opinion page. And there is opinion programming and there's objective news reporting. And I'll be honest, I'm very proud to work with some great reporters here at Fox that do dig in to issues like Fast and Furious, our reporting on Benghazi. And I would even argue, you know, the fact that the president was never asked a lot about the $6 trillion in debt that he accumulated prior to this election, in this first election, wasn't asked about his association with Bill Ayers, was troublesome to me. I think we've got a media that is not as critical as perhaps it once was in the days of, for example, Watergate.
Well, I agree with that, and we need to be very aggressive. And it's one of the judges that said democracies die in darkness. And I really think that's true. If we don't know what's going on, if they can erect these barriers. Mike McCurry, who was Bill Clinton's press secretary, is quoted the other day saying, "This White House does things that I wouldn't even dream of trying to get away with." So we are, you know, the barriers have come up. We know less about what goes on. Now, on the other hand, I've interviewed Clinton for my Obama for my 2 books for hours. People answered questions. They were very serious about answering them in detail. That's how I found out where the sequester started. And that's where I found out lots of little maneuvers in all of the budget and fiscal debates that they've had. So they responded, and I think that's really important. The problem I have with the Gene Sperling memo and email, and this comes after a shouting match. Now, lots of people shout at me, and he says I'm going to regret. That goes into the coded. You better watch out.
Yeah, I will say. So you said something very profound, though, that democracy, I don't think it can survive without a critical press. I think a lot of areas have lost that. And there's room for what I do, which is the opinion page. But there's plenty of room for, I think, real hard journalism. Thank you for being with us. Thanks for coming again on the program. And we appreciate it.